come to order. I'm already standing to save myself a little bit of effort here to make the Pledge of Allegiance. And I would like everyone in the room, not all, please to honor it. We will now do the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you all. Okay. Introductions. I'm going to start around the table with board and administration. I'm going to ask other interested individuals if they would introduce themselves. I'm going to anticipate that the other individuals may wish to have some input tonight at this meeting, and we want to have that input subject to my discretion, but I intend to exercise fairly wide latitude around the inputs that I get tonight. Do we have, let's do the introductions. I'm David Clark. I represent Westminster on the Union High School board, and I am chairing budget tonight. Jason?
And Jason Terry, I'm on the Bells Falls Union High School board from Rockingham.
Jim? Who are you?
Jim Lazina.
What do you do?
I'm helping Andy with finance.
Thank you.
And
And
superintendent.
Kelly?
Kelly Ryan, principal.
Hi. Who are you?
Mike Stack, citizen.
Rob?
Rob Wells, Bells Falls High School board chair, or the board member, and
You'll get there, but not tonight. Mary Lou?
Mary Lou Smith, Westminster resident.
Jim?
Jim McCall, Rockingham.
David?
David Lambert, community member, Rockingham.
Priscilla? I'm shouting because I don't know what the pickup is on these owl cameras. And if members who are not the two of us that are members of this committee, or the three of us who are administrators wish to comment, but I ask you to come up to the table so that we're sure that we can pick it up on Zoom. Okay, I take note of the fact that we have some individuals in the Zoom. I see Back TV, whoever that is. I have Susan Small here, who I believe is a reformer. I have Tara Darrell, who I believe would be considered our recording secretary tonight. And I have Adam Stewart. Adam, I don't know you, so if you would do us a favor, would you introduce yourself? Turn on your camera if you can, and introduce yourself. Okay, I'm going to take it that you are not currently interested in introducing yourself. If you have a question, I'd like to see an electronic hand. And at that point, as soon as I notice it, I will recognize you so that we can talk. Thanks for being here. Okay. Adjustments to the agenda. Do we have any adjustments from the committee? Oh, no adjustments from the committee. Do we have any administrative adjustments? No administrative adjustments. Okay. Communications and public comments. Can I have a show of hands? Is that anyone who may have an interest in communication, public comment? I see both Citizen Stack and I see Rob Welch. You guys figure out who's going first. Okay. Thanks for coming up, Rob.
so again, Rob Wells, board member from Bells Falls Union High School, but I'm sort of here as a community member, and I would like to read a letter that was sent to the board on a couple of occasions asking us to present this, and I feel as a community member, board member, letter, I think we ought to read it. I do want to make it very clear that I do not have an opinion one way or the other. I am strictly reading this as a person that has written a letter to us.
Okay, thank you, Rob. Just so that we're not all Spence, if you just tell us who the letter is from and then get going, we're
Yep.
ready.
It's, the letter is from Jamie Dansrell, and I will start reading it. Dear board members, I am Jamie Dansrell, a proud alumnus of Bells Falls Union High School, graduating with the class of 2001. Today, I write to passionately argue against the proposal to lower the credit requirements at BFUHS. Our community stands as at a pivotal juncture, and the decision we make now will significantly impact our future. I humbly request the opportunity to shed light on the critical importance of maintaining the current 28 credit requirements. During my time at BFUHS, I regrettably pursued the path of least resistance, seeking the quickest exit possible. Fortunately, I was admitted to St. Michael's College, where I encountered a stark wake-up call. I found myself unprepared, on the verge of losing my scholarship due to poor grades. While my choices played a significant role in that predicament, I also believe that I wasn't adequately challenged during my high school years. I have learned how to navigate the system without being pushed to excel. However, since my time at BFUHS, our dedicated administrators, namely John Doty, Chris Hodgson, and John Broadley, have tirelessly strived to raise the bar for our students. They increased credit requirements, expanded community service opportunities, adding more AP classes, introduced a senior project requirement, and initiated honors courses. It wasn't just about setting high expectations. It was also about establishing a robust support system to ensure student success. Enhancements in alternative education programs, the creation of the Freshman Academy, daily homework assistance, summer credit recovery programs, and ongoing collaboration between administrators and teachers to empower every student to mark this transformation. They fostered a culture of relentless improvement. Having returned to BFUHS as an educator, mentor, and coach, I have witnessed firsthand the incredible impact these changes have. Students embrace the challenge to outdo themselves, pushing for greater achievements than the classes before them. This determination became contagious, and it takes immense pride in being a part of the Bells Falls Union High School community. I was generally shocked to hear of the consideration to lower the graduation requirements. Such a decision threatens the incredible culture we've cultivated, which urges students to strive for their best. Consider for a moment the message we would send by essentially saying, we don't expect you to work as hard, we won't push you to excel. History has shown that remarkable individuals achieve greatness when they are pushed to their limits. Edison persevered through numerous failures to create the light bulb. Van Gogh's arts gained recognition after his lifetime. And Bethany Hamill, who lost an arm to a shark at 13, won a national surfing championship just 2 years later. Greatness is born from resilience. If we cease pushing our students to their best, we risk having fewer doctors, lawyers, artists, mechanics, service personnel, farmers, and countless other contributors to our community. This will undoubtedly harm our community's vitality, reducing it to a place where mediocrity is accepted. This is not the foundation upon which our nation was built. The colonists didn't reach the Beaver, the Dartmouth, the Eleanor in the Boston Harbor and said, that's good enough, let's go get a pint. Our founding fathers in Philadelphia did not merely aim to form a union. They aspired to establish a more perfect one. Their vision, etched in the Constitution, embodies the pursuit of continuous improvement. We are a society that consistently pushes boundaries. On September 12, 1962, President Kennedy issued a resounding call to action. We choose to go to the moon. We choose to go to the moon in this decade, and we do the other things not because they are easy, but because they are hard. Because that goal will serve to organize the measure the best of our energies and skills, because that challenge is one that we're willing to accept. Less than 7 years later, Neil Armstrong echoed this sentiment in his iconic words. That's one small step for man, one giant leap for mankind. It is imperative that we continue to support our students, encouraging them to strive for more. We must avoid shortcuts and refrain from relying solely on online classes as a replacement for in-person education. The pandemic has unequivocally demonstrated that this approach lacks the ability to inspire and connect with our students effectively. Our students require highly skilled teachers who can engage with them and challenge them to excel, just as exemplary educators like Susan Swan, Justin Obi, Holly Falzo, and Kim Wilkinson have consistently done. For instance, Susan Swan, a retired teacher, continues to dedicate her time to assisting our students in both high school and college who require extra support. Additionally, Justin Obi collaborates with the student council to orchestrate the annual food drive, fostering a culture of giving back to our community. Lastly, Holly Falzo and Kim Wilkinson ensure that students facing challenges in a traditional classroom setting receive the necessary support to graduate alongside their peers. These individuals represent just a few of the outstanding teachers in our community. In the spirit of Mr. Keaton's inspiration to Carpe Diem, it is essential that our teachers have the opportunity to engage with our students in person, helping them to truly seize the day. Sincerely, Jamie Danswood. Thank you.
Thank you, Rob. Anything else? Okay, I see you, Mike. I just want to find out if Justin Fuller, Mr. Fuller arrived a little bit late here. However, we are still under communication and public comment. Justin, if you have anything you would like to share with this committee, this would be a great time for us to hear it.
I don't at this time. I'm just observing this evening. But thank you.
Okay, thanks for being here. Right. Mike Stack, come on up.
Might be worth, I think we should, might be worth, David, calling the folks on Zoom to see if they can hear us.
Thank you. Justin, since you got your camera on, can you hear us okay?
Just fine.
Thank you. Okay, before you get going, Mike.
Yes.
I want to reiterate the fact that we're operating under David's rules of order tonight. And it is important that we, as a budget committee, receive the information that you have prepared for this committee. So while I'm hopeful that you can do it concisely, I am not hopefully going to limit your time. I think we're going on over long. You'll hear about it from me, but let's get going.
Right.
Ready when you are, Mike.
Thank you. And I think I can do this in 3 minutes, so I'll try to do this quickly. First of all, full disclosure, I'm here as a citizen. I do not represent the Lister's office. I do not represent the board. These are strictly my inputs. And the bottom line is I'm here to actually put a plug in for the taxpayer. I've talked to a lot of people in town that have struggled to pay their property taxes, which is obviously the basis, or at least a piece of the basis for the education in the state. And a lot of people are struggling right now, a combination of inflation and taxes. And I just want to highlight that because I know the board is still collecting data, the budget committee specifically in terms of determining what the budget's going to be, what we're going to spend down here. I think it's just important for people to understand the process by which we collect money and then spend it. So I'm going to just run through. I've got 2 slides here. I'd like to enter these 2 slides into our database, whatever that people can access if they want to get a hold of this. But first of all, I just want to comment that the Rockingham grand list, which is roughly $500 million, so $500 million, is less than 1% of the state of Vermont. And so we fall into the category of a receiving community versus some of the towns like Burlington, Stowe, Ludlow that have, large ski and business bases. We are a receiving town, and that is as a result of Act 60, which was passed in the late 90s. And that act was called the Equal Education Opportunity Act. And the intention of that act was to make sure that education spending in the state of Vermont was equal. So because we're such a small grand list, and that's what determines what the state looks to us for in terms of funding our spending. We are, again, a receiving town. So that was kind of the pitch for Act 60, the reality of how education funding is accomplished is on the second page. And that is
I want to stop you just a
Sure,
moment.
go ahead.
Does administration have this slide? Okay, I'm talking about in a form, we can put it up on the screen. Does
Right.
Administration have this, slide in that form? With the email to it?
To be honest with you, David, I think this is just something to
Okay.
enter to the record. And if people have questions, we can get into it. People want to check into my math, my analysis, whatever, they can do that after the fact. So reclaiming my
I
time.
apologize for the interruption, Mike. Let's
No problem.
Keep going.
So the second page is basically, this is from the Vermont Education funding analysis, which is out of the Joint Fiscal Office, which is a state entity. And the bottom line is this chart, while complex, shows you the sources of funding. Up in the upper right-hand corner, light green, net homestead education, 25% of the funding. That's us, that's the state, residents and the basis, your home value, et cetera, that funds that portion of the spending in the state. Roughly, the state is about $2 billion now in the state of Vermont for education funding. The reality, though, is again, the concept was, and I think the sales pitch was, the flatlanders, the businesses, they're going to pay the bill in a bigger way than the residents of Vermont. That's not what's going on. This is the reality, and this is from the state of Vermont. And by my calculation, when I go back through this chart, 25% from homesteads, that's, you and I, 28% from sales and use tax. Well, 80% of sales and use tax in the state comes from Vermont residents. And then the next bucket, the 39% from the non-homestead portion of the state's grand list. A big portion of that is business, but unfortunately, what does business do when they get taxed? They up the price of their product, whether they're a utility, whether they're whatever the product they make is. So by my calculations, we all get a tax bill. It's divided from the town. It's divided between municipal spending and education spending. If you take that education spending number, you can multiply that number by 3 when you take into consideration all the taxes that you are being hit with, whether it's through increased prices through businesses or sales and use tax. So again, I just wanted to highlight that. Last year in our town, we had 49 families whose homes were on the property tax list because they were struggling to pay their property taxes. So the town has a list every year of taxpayers that are delinquent on their taxes, and the list was 49 last year. Bottom line is a lot of people are struggling to pay these taxes, the cost of living going through the roof. And so a lot of people that I talk to are hesitant to come into this meeting and express the struggle that they're having, whether it's a pride issue or they don't want to be anti-academic, anti the students. But the bottom line is this budgeting process, I think we have to consider the taxpayer, and that's my pitch. Anybody have any questions or?
Questions? Good question, Dave, Priscilla? Jim? Mary Lou? Rob? Jason? Excluding administration because I presume you already know this stuff. All right, great. Okay, I do not, yes, sir.
David, I don't have a way to do minutes tonight. I do see Tara is on Zoom. I'm hoping that she's taking minutes for us because I am not.
Okay, Gotcha. Andy,
Back TV is here, so they should be reporting as well. So there
okay,
should hopefully be something ultimately there.
great, wonderful, wonderful. Okay,
David,
yes, sir.
Similar to Mike, so if I could have the letter that was written be entered in to the meeting minutes as well. I will get it to you.
If the committee has no objection,
Administration already has the letter.
Yeah, I think it is, yeah.
done. Wonderful. Okay, let's keep going. Approved minutes from September 21st, 2023. Like to take action on this, I presume it's a committee. I'm gonna exercise the prerogative of small boards, and I'm gonna put a motion on the floor here to accept the minutes as presented. And I am going now, having offered that motion, offered amendment to it. I'm hoping that the committee will be paying close attention here, because the chair declines to vote on minutes tonight. Ready? And I'm going all the way down here to 7A. 7A states that Priscilla stated that she could have presented herself better at the previous board meeting, and that my staff didn't know what to do at the budget meeting about stopping clarifying questions, okay? I am entering that language in as an amendment, and I am seeking an up or down vote from my committee as to whether it wishes to accept that amendment.
Did you read that again so I can?
Yes, sir. Priscilla stated that she could have presented herself better at the previous board meeting. And that Mike Stack didn't know what to do at the budget budget meeting about stopping clarifying questions. So the language that would amend this would be strike budget and insert board. And after second sentence, Mike Stack didn't know what to do, we would add the language at the previous budget meeting about stopping clarifying questions. So the committee is now asked to either vote in favor or in opposition to that amendment. How does the committee vote, Mr. Terry? Let me hand it over to you so you can see it. Okay.
I wish to keep the minutes as is.
Okay, so you decline the amendment. All right, and we're back to the motion. And the chair queries the committee. If the committee then wishes to accept the minutes as presented.
David, question for you. Do you need to denote that I left at 6:50?
Andy, I have not seen my email since 11 this morning. So, yeah, I'm gonna, obviously you have information you need. Let's have it, please.
No, in the minutes. In the meeting, I left at 6:15. Does it need to denote that I left and show that I wasn't present for the whole meeting? That's my question.
Okay, thank you. Does the committee wish to include that in the minutes? I frankly think Andy's immaterial to the meeting, but the chair, if the committee wishes to amend the minutes to reflect that, the committee can.
No.
Okay, all right. The motion now is to accept the minutes as presented. What is the committee's pleasure?
Yes.
Okay, we got that done. All right, so we are through adjustments, we are through public comments, we have through the minutes. Let's get down to old business. Update on original 9-item data request from Kelly. Kelly, where are we?
Yeah, so I think we are, bullet point 2, the student population that will come in.
I just stop. Oh, can you guys hear this okay? If you can't hear, just come up to the table, make my life easy, okay? No, we're right over here would be good. There's like four seats there, there's 4 people, let's use those seats. You okay?
Thank you, David.
Makes my life easier. All right, continue, Kelly, let's go.
Okay, so just to summarize for those who are new, there were 9 data points that were requested at the last meeting. Bullet point 1 was the teacher roster by subject, step grade, total salary and benefits. That was provided. There are some modifications that will need to be made to that in terms of, there's some discrepancies in there, but that's a good starting point. And we're working with Jim on that now. Bullet point 2 was the fiscal year 24 with the Northeast student population. That is due to the state in early October 1-ish. So I think at our next budget meeting, I think Jason mentioned might be scheduled in October, so that'll be official. We'll have that official data point once that's done. Bullet point 3, schedule B, schedule departmental operations, general fund for the year. You provided that.
There you go, yeah.
Bullet point 4, 10 student transcripts with the names redacted across the academic spectrum from last year's graduating class. Those transcripts included several from students who went on to post-secondary college, several who went on to more technical based with work-based programming, and several transcripts from students who did not walk in further. So it was intended for the request to show across the continuum that we provided. Bullet point 5 was a class details or a schedule analysis that was provided in the K-12 report. And that really was course by course to show the student occupancy. So that was provided there. Bullet point 6 was the 2023 absentee rate by teacher that was provided in the last meeting. Bullet point 7 was the total substitute expense allocated by subject. I don't know if that, I don't recall if that document had it tabulated in that way, but it had teacher and I think content areas. I think those 2 were captured in that. Bullet point 6. Bullet point 8, 2023 student proficiency levels by subject. That's what I'm still working on pulling out of our school. I'm having a lot of success getting a clean data pool. Still working on it. We'll have that by the next round. And bullet point 9, 2023 student failure rate by subject. And that was provided in the last meeting. So that's.
Thank you, Kelly. Questions from the committee? Okay. Rob, board member, question? Okay. Mike? Or Lou? Yeah.
Well, the number 5, the schedule, I saw. I got the copy of the information, but the what I expected to see was the period of the day. Okay, the teacher. And then in each block, class and the number of students in the class. I didn't see that. I saw overall, there was so many units or something. That would have been the information that I would like to see if I were a director on an ongoing basis, each term. Using averages was fine, but seeing what the student load per teacher would be important information for each of the directors.
Kelly's clarifying information. Jim and I both had overlapping for quite a while, actually, terms on the Union High School Board. This is information that we had sought in the past. It's information that we found helpful to us. And if it is not too large a burden for you to produce it, it would be helpful in my judgment of this committee. Okay, I'm gonna just, wanna ask, Priscilla, board member, Union High School Board, do you have any questions about this so far? Kelly's 9 responses.
No, I agree with Jigs that last year we had and printed out that way, and it's really helpful to see those that would be helpful. I think that I last year Sharon
And actually, if you would, come on up, just make my life a lot simpler, and it would certainly help people in Zoom land. If you and Dave would just get up here at the table, where we can see you. I will, I think I can manage this, okay? All right, and actually, Priscilla, if you would, because I'm not, Ms. Haminacher, could you hear Priscilla? Were you able to hear Priscilla's presentation? Okay, what about you, Justin? Did you hear Priscilla?
Not really.
Okay, Priscilla, you better do it again.
what I said is I appreciate it.
Just yell towards that.
Project one owl, please.
Agree with Jigs that last year we had the schedules for extra teachers, and that I would be glad to find my one from last year and share it so you can see what we did, so that might help me for you as a new person doing that particular thing. And it's up to the committee if they want that.
I see a hand, Rob.
And so I just clarification, if I could, my understanding is as community members.
Oh, we're running under my rules tonight. I think that we have a small enough group here that we can have inputs around the table. And one of my cardinal rules, people make good decisions when everyone has the same information. And if there are people who have information which may be useful to this committee, I want to hear it. Okay, and yes, I understand the basis of your concern. I'm not going to call it objection. Go ahead.
So I think further clarification, I think any questions that, if you're gonna allow that, any questions that are being asked, I think it should be asked to the committee, because then those will be requests that could be asked to the supervisory union or the high school.
I believe, Rob, that if we are taking good minutes, that we will be able to communicate that both up and down the food chain. Okay, and I have to, anything else? Okay, I also have to say, since I did query you, Mary Lou, a member of the public, but you have an interest in being here tonight, and I do believe that once again, we make good decisions when we know what our community happens to be thinking about. I have an obligation to ask Dave Lambert if you have anything. Dave, you got anything?
Nothing.
Okay, well, I'm going to keep going then. Thank you. Let's see here. Update on full data request. Who's got this for administration?
Which part?
Update on full data request. Update on full data request. One once. Okay. I'm going to query my staff. Can you clarify for us, Mike, since I believe you wrote it, exactly what that full data request entails? Can you help us with that, Mike?
Sure, I think Kelly actually just went through the list of items that the committee requested, and so I think we're good. She noted that there was a few outstanding items that she still had to submit, so I think that's a little repetitive to be candid.
Thank you for your help. Okay, timeline for administrative response on open data request items. Who's got this? Is that you again, Kelly?
I think it depends on when our next budget meeting is gonna be.
Okay, fine, good, great answer. Additional administrative comment. Jeff, additional administrative comment on this budget preparation process? Is there anything that you think we should know?
Well, we're just getting started in the process and, right now, I'm looking at trying to make sure the people that we have at certain schools are correct. And again, there's a lot of movement during the summertime. This isn't just hiring 20 people. I mean, you may have 50 people that have moved in different spots. So the initial budget.
That- Oh,
This. This gives you an initial, look at the budget. And again, obviously it's people. There's two in each.
Oh, I don't have a second.
Sorry, there's two. Good.
I'm missing the high school one, the small, lighter one.
There you go. Yep. This gives you an account detail. Right now, where we're at. And again, as Kelly starts to develop this, she'll add accounts to this, and we'll get those in. But at least this gives you some idea where you're at, because we do have electric, fuel, and that type of stuff. So based on last year and the changes that we've made, you know, property insurances, liability insurances, some of those larger items are now in here. Obviously, the SU assessment is not, and we don't know where that's gonna end up. But I think as we go forward, getting an understanding of how many students we're going to be serving. And typically we use the October 1st enrollment data for a kind of a gauge of where we're at. Kelly will bring forward, you know, classes, class sizes, and teachers and staff that she's gonna need to do the job she's done before. That's, you know, for me, that's number one in this process. A lot of the other stuff will adjust as we need to, but this gives you some idea. One item that I noted on here, and this data pulls off from other databases that I have. And I don't have pages on here, but the second page, and I'm looking at the second page. No, sorry, it's not the second page. There we go. So I think it's the third page, middle of the page. And again, there's an account on here for athletic director. Shows 135. Now, as I said, this is pulling from other data sheets. Doesn't look correct. I don't know why it's 135. But I will find out for you. We'll make whatever corrections we have to. So,
What number is that, just so we know?
254.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah. Right, 254. Everybody see that? It would seem to be an error. But I'll find out. It'll be adjusted. We're really trying hard to get the quality assurance piece done at this time. We've got to make sure, and what we're doing is reconciling payroll now with the budget data. And they've got to go like this. So we've got every dollar accounted for. You know, it sounds easy, but it's not. So after we get the people, employees in place, then what we're gonna do is we're gonna step everybody, both support staff and teachers. That's your obligation. We'll see where that gets you. I'm estimating and guessing a little bit, probably end up 12 to 15% on the health insurance. We'll see. But once we have that number, we'll push forward. That number will probably come in mid-November. So some of the data and the vocational costs for tuition and support will come in probably mid-November, somewhere in that time as well. So we won't be able to do much with those numbers, but we'll adjust them as we go forward. It's the biggest thing right now is people, employees, where are we gonna be? And again, I think Andy's gotta look at, the grant funded positions. We've got ESSER people, and those will have to be looked at, see where we're at, what we have to bring in and change. Any questions that I can answer for you right now?
Okay, Jason Terry, recognized?
Thank you, David. When do you think you'll have that number, the staff? When do you think you'll have that?
And I'm guessing, but I think that within 3 weeks, and we'll see, but I would imagine 3 weeks' time, we'll have a clear picture, quality wise, of where we are.
David, other question? Do I need to make a motion to have that at the next budget meeting, which is October 26th?
Do we need a motion to compel, or are you thinking we'll get it done?
Listen, if I can get it done sooner, I will. Okay.
So we anticipate that on the 9th. If there are problems, could you let us know ahead of time?
Absolutely.
Anything else, Jason?
Thank you.
Okay, I saw a hand down on this end of the table, and Mike, I will recognize you in a moment. I just want to check in with the high school board members. Rob, anything? Okay, Priscilla. Okay, go ahead, Mike.
Okay, Jim, I see you have a line in your budget, your object budget for the SU assessment. And this is on it's only 2 pages, and on the second page it's 37.
Yes.
When you show that number in the budget, are you going to show the 500,000 roughly kickback that we're getting from the over assessment? We will return. Yeah.
We are returning now any of the surplus monies
Yes.
that were divided up. That has been returned effective, I think, this week.
Right.
And what we did was we got you an assessment, a new assessment for this year.
Right.
And we kind of said, there's your check, we want it.
Right.
And that's what we did. Just cash flow wise, I think it helps everybody.
So my question is, will that number drop from last year's 1.7 million down by 500,000, or are you going to show us the gross amount? So that we're factoring all those expenses into the budget?
The town will be taking that monies that they receive into their revenue source.
Okay.
So they'll be, right now, it won't connect at all to any school district funding.
I just want to make sure apples to apples in
Yes.
terms of the numbers that we're looking at in the budget.
Yep.
And then the only other question I had was, as we sit in this room with the noise level out of this world, are we allowed to establish reserves for future building capital spending that we're obviously going to need? Are we allowed to establish that reserve in a budget?
Yes, if you put a line item in under specific building repairs, $1 million,
Right,
you can do it.
right.
Yeah,
Do we have, is there something that we have to do to justify that we're gonna spend whatever we're gonna spend? I'm not talking about the money that is gonna be kicked back to us, but I'm talking about, God forbid, we can't get the PCB
Right.
level down in the building. And we gotta take some serious steps to, you know, and make improvements. What can we do about that? How can we incorporate that into the budget?
Right now, I mean, it would be incorporated as a specific building repair. And as I say, if you put $1 million, $2 million, we don't know what it's gonna be, but you can put a line item specific.
Okay, great, thank you.
Justin? Jason? Who's looking for Justin? I ain't here. Jason?
Thank you. Jim, I have two questions for you. Can you point out to everyone where the PCB line is on the budget?
The PCB line, which estimated about 300,000 now, is in a separate fund. This is your general fund budget. This is not any of the federal funds or additional funds. So there's a separate fund set up to capture all PCB expenditures.
Will that be on the final? Will the taxpayers know? Just so that they don't have any questions as far as was it reimbursed, was it not reimbursed?
Absolutely, absolutely, because understand this, if the state comes up short, you will pick up. Whether you have the money or not, you will pick up the difference in balance to support that expense. Very similarly, what you do for any federal project, if we overextend on any federal project, you pick up the difference.
Right. Thanks for clarifying that for everyone. So my last question for you is, so this is an immense project. I totally understand that. And so the administration, I'm sure, is working hard on it. Who, other than Kelly, who helps Kelly on all these numbers in? Maybe that's the question for Kelly, I guess. I'm not sure.
You know, Rebecca Coble, I think, does support Kelly on this. And again, I think we collaboratively work. The superintendent says, hey, get over there and help them. And I mean, I'll do whatever I have to do with.
So two things. I want to say thank you, everyone who's involved doing it. I understand it's a big project. But with the world is different at Bellows Falls compared to what it was last year. So if in a winter time, if kids aren't in the building and things change, or we have modulars, so we're obviously going to use less heat. You know, we're going to use less utilities. We're going to use more electricity. So we got this. I just want to make sure that that's pointed out that we really got to, like, just because the number was that static number for the last 10 years, this year might not be that number. So I really want to make sure that we're really looking at it. And I know you will. I just want to make sure I say it. You don't need a comment. I just want to make sure. You can if you want.
And I just want to say, you know, we had pumped up, you know, like heating oil, which is a big expense here. Because it looked like it was going to go in that direction. And so we probably are going to end up with a little bit of surplus with what we purchased on. But the barrel price now is about $90. So we may have to add on to what's in this budget.
Going up, Jim,
Yeah,
going up.
yeah, I know. So we'll have to add on. It's a question of how much.
And electricity is definitely going to be up too.
Yes, yes.
Thank you.
Anything else? No, good? Okay, Jim McCall, any questions?
Well, I think just as a budget guy, I would urge the committee not to make the PCB cost issue a part of this discussion. I think it's very confusing. Nobody's got the answers. And it would really distract the work that needs to be done. I really would urge you not to get involved in that. I think obviously when you put numbers in for fuel and electricity, I mean, it's at the margin, it's not going to have much of a difference. So I think it would really be a disservice to your work to bring that in. Not that you don't have to deal with that in a different capacity, in a budget capacity. That would be number one. And number two, I think the questions I heard Jason ask the administration, I really think the administration is looking for this committee or the board uh, to make decisions that could affect staffing. For example, uh, you have, probably you have ESSER positions that are being funded by ESSER in your building this year. If they're not, like the dean of students isn't gonna get picked up by a grant, you're gonna have to decide whether to fund those positions or eliminate those positions. So that's a big. The other thing, I know you've been asking questions about class size, number of students in the class, and also the size, number of students in order to have a class, minimum number of students. Those kind of things need to be decided by the board, in order, in conjunction with Kelly, in order to provide input into the budget. So I think those are kind of the obvious items. As Jim said, right now, everything drives off of the number of people and most people know.
Thank you, Jim. Dave Lambert, anything? Nothing. Mary Lou?
I would just like to urge the board to be very careful when you're looking at numbers in class sizes. And to make sure that you really understand what the class entails. That's all.
Thank you, Mary Lou. Anything else, Jim? Okay, anything additional administration, Andy?
So I just want to clarify what Jake said. The only ESSER funded position at the high school is the dean of students, which will be funded through a grant for fiscal year 25. So there is no additional FTE other than potentially what Kelly might think we need is going in there. So the other the piece that may need to be discussed is the work-based learning. Is that going to stay as an SU funded position, or is that going to be a solely high school position? That's a bigger discussion that we need to have. Is programmatically, is that an SU? Is that person serving K through 12, or is that person only serving 9 through 12?
What's the venue we need to discuss that in, Andy? Where do we talk about that?
So I think we need to talk about it with the work-based learning as far as what is that a K-12 or is that going to be a 9-12? So that would then help to influence, would it be part of this budget or not?
Is that a joint discussion between the high school and the SU board? Where do we talk about this?
I think we need to come with a proposal to you of where we see that program.
Okay, when do we see that proposal?
We can probably have that by the next budget meeting.
Right, any input, Kelly?
And I would just say those conversations have already started, so.
Okay, all right then. Yes, Jim.
I thought there was what's the program about?
Hey, Jim, pick it up a notch if you can. I have trouble hearing you over here.
There's a program about dealing with student behavior or something like that. There's position, I thought there was a position.
Restorative practices.
Restorative practice.
So
I believe those were ESSER funded.
at the high school, that's the dean of students.
Okay.
Okay,
Good clarifying question. Thank you.
what else do I have from administration? Anything else, Kelly? Andy? Jim? Okay, we're on to new business. Review new solutions K-12 presentation from September 21st. Do we have a presenter on this here tonight? Oh, boy, okay. Kelly, you were in attendance? Okay. Mike, you were in attendance? Who else was here besides, because I think that started after you left the room, Andy. Who else is here that was on that? You and me, Jason, and I guess Priscilla and Dave. All right then. Guess what I'm going to ask for then is, if we have anyone at the table who wishes to speak to it. If we don't, then I'm gonna ask the question. Okay, is this anything you wish to address with us, Kelly?
Sure, I mean, I think it's important to reiterate that what K-12 put forward was very much a preliminary data set benchmarked at that 20 student per class, right? I think what's missing so far is a lot of feedback from the faculty, right? And those meetings started this past Tuesday and again yesterday, and will continue with students in special education and then administration and others moving forward. So there's a lot of finessing that needs to happen. I think right out of the gate, there was a few things that stood out to me, and I think others looked at that initial data set. One is one of safety, right? So some of those benchmarks of like art and shop, for example, right, were benchmarked to 20. Historically, those have been much lower, right? 14, 16. So that's, you know, there's things like that that will have implications on class sizes moving forward. I think another thing that's really important is a goal in the community, right? Within the building, is that we offer more concurrent dual enrollment opportunities to our students, right? So in looking at a CCV model, for example, we currently offer 2 classes within our English department that offer dual enrollment credit. CCV has an expectation that those class sizes are no larger than 18, right? So there's these external variables as well that are not captured in that initial data set being filed. Then there's lots of other things like that, right, that are going to continue to come through in our conversations, right? So I just want to again urge caution, right, around that. I think another big thing that's not present there that is, I think, a big and important topic that's ongoing here in the building. Spent almost an hour this morning talking to some staff about it. Is this, how are we going to better include our special ed students in our gen ed classes, right? And so what is the most ideal model in terms of staffing around that? So that also needs to be better accounted for in the proposal moving forward. So there are lots of other buckets like that, very important topics and conversations that are ongoing. So I just want to name that at the outset.
Thank you, Kelly. Mike, I believe that you were taking some pretty close notes for that presentation. Is there anything you wish to contribute?
I take away from listening to the consultant who, let's be candid, was hired by you, and has to keep a relationship with you and the teachers that they're working with. Was he answered some questions in a pretty guarded way, specifically when we asked for input. He described our schedule as a rich set of offerings, which to me was consultant speak for probably a little overboard. So I think it'd be very helpful to analyze the data from the perspective of not the existing schedule, which would be doing what we're doing, which indicated, I think, if you accumulated the data, it was 3+ FTEs that we were overstaffed based upon the existing schedule, not a projected schedule or a schedule that we believe is the right schedule. That was one issue. The second issue was we asked if it was possible to dissect the data from the perspective of resources being spent on students that are heading to college versus students that are not following the 4-year college prep, which I believe is a higher percentage of our students. Not anti-academic by any means, but I think if we're talking about equity from the standpoint of the resource allocation, are we spending the resources in the right place? I'd love to see that split of the resource allocation, college bound, non-college bound, which may help us with this issue that I think we're going to have to wrestle with, not here, but in the board, regarding the graduation requirements or what the minimum requirement is for graduation. Anyways, that was, those were my pieces.
Andy,
So I was not at the presentation, but there's been I've heard a couple comments or since the presentation and I just want to clarify a couple of things. When I asked and spoke with the administration about bringing in new solutions K-12, the purpose of bringing them in was not to reduce our staff. It was to maximize how we are using our staff to support our students who have a gross loss of learning, and the students we currently have are continuing to have that loss of learning from COVID. It doesn't go away just because COVID got better. And to how do we utilize our staff? The intent was always to be a year-long project to influence us how we could schedule better next year and in the future by looking at our current schedule. And then how do we utilize those resources to change our schedule so that we can maximize that? There might be potential in the future at some times of not having as many staff, but it was never to use it to influence, to reduce our staff. And I'm leery of that because we mentioned at a meeting that it might be useful for that, and that was not the purpose of it. And it was not our intent to do that. So if that is the board's intent, is to utilize the tool that's not even complete yet, they haven't even done their whole analysis. I worry that a board will be making uninformed decisions. So that's number one. The second one is, I heard that I think I read in the minutes, there was a mention that only 40% of our students go on to college. And it's actually 60% of our students go on post-secondary offerings. And so I think we need to be clear that more of a majority of our students are going on to post-secondary, whether it's 2-year or vocational schooling or going on to 4-year, the majority of them are going on to that experience. And so we need to ensure that we are preparing kids for that. And at the same time, knowing that there are 40% that are going, there's a certain percentage of that are going to go on to the military, there's a certain percentage that go into the workforce. Some take a gap year. So one of the things we noted is there hasn't been longitudinal study to follow up with students. So those 5 to 10% of students maybe who take a gap year, do we follow up with them and say, hey, what'd you do after that gap year? That is important for us to know, because that may be more students who are going on to post-secondary as opposed to just going into the workforce. So it's really multifaceted. As we talk about credits, that's a whole big thing to unpack. It's not just the state says 20 credits and we offer 28 credits, because there's a lot of nuances in there. And if you look at other schools, and other schools maybe offer only 21 or 20 credits, or they require that, are they on block scheduling? Or are they on a 5-period day? If they're on a 5-period day, the maximum number of credits a kid can earn is 20 credits. If they're on a 6-period day, the maximum they can earn is 24 credits. So if a school requires 22 credits and they can only earn 24 credits, that ratio is pretty tight. So when we look at our schedule of 32 credits, is 28 in the right ratio of that? And we've started to do that research and look around the state and where is all those ranges and whatnot. Look at requirements for post-secondary offerings. What are they requiring? And the other piece that we have to nuance in there is that for a proficiency-based graduation system. So even though a school that we compare ourselves to might say you need 22 credits, that might all be nuanced also, that they still have to earn all these proficiency credits in all these other areas that actually equate to more classes. But they only, and we have a hybrid system, so you need 28 credits and you need the proficiency-based graduation credits requirements. And so it's a balance that it's not as simple as the state says we need 20 credits, we're offering 28 credits, we should reduce our credits down. It's very complex, and I think it's gonna require a lot of work that has to be done for NEASC, which is, the accreditation is coming up. And so it's, I just want to be very, very clear, because there's been some discussion about we should just cut credits, and I've heard that numerous times. And I want to be very cautious that it's not just as simple as it sounds.
Rob, I see your hand, and I will recognize you in a moment. Andy, I'm going to ask you if you could shoot the committee a memo about post-secondary, and if you would, can you break it out between college and voc tracks, and so we can see how those are trending. And I'll come back in just a moment, Rob, but I do want to get a couple of inputs that I think you may possibly miss, depending on what your timing was at the last meeting, Mike. One of those, Dave Lambert, was you did have some useful information for us about accreditation in science, and if you recall that conversation, I did not have the impression that our Andy's consultant was aware of that nuance. If you can just pop it up for us again, it'd be helpful, because I don't think that our consultant, the third Dave in the room that night, was necessarily aware of that. You have that again, Andy? Dave, if you don't, I'm moving on to Priscilla, because you also, Priscilla, had some comment about scheduling and licensure.
When the consultant was estimating the number of FTEs required.
This is teacher FTE.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I didn't know whether they were considering the separate science endorsements required to teach science classes. And apparently the consultant was not fully aware of that.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for that, Dave. So, you recall what you were able to tell us about staff FTEs? I'm referring to in the context of the new solutions K-12 discussion.
Part of what happens is that, for example, when I was here,
Crank it up if you can.
I was highly qualified in all 4 subject areas for special ed, but a lot of your teachers are not. And so when you can't teach, for example, I could teach in special ed all 4 major areas. Somebody else would only teach maybe math, or only teach science, or because we to be fully credited. Also, you can't move from, like Dave was saying, from biology to chemistry or physics. There are some general courses you can do. It's more flexible in the middle school grades than it is at the high school level. It's very specific, and you have to be endorsed in specific areas. You can't just take an English teacher and plunk them over in the math area to cover those courses. Some teachers have dual. They could move from, maybe they have the English and social studies, they could teach, but they could move over, but you have to look at that as well.
That's what I meant. So thank you for that. Rob, thank you for your patience.
Thank you. I think off Andy's comment, I would just like to caution our board to individually be making comments either in the newspaper or other places, because those are individual opinions and conversations. I would love us to have more dialogue as a board, so that we are collectively discussing this very important issue that doesn't just impact this year's budget, it impacts 3 years down the road, 5 years down the road. And not only the budget, it impacts the children that we're responsible for educating in this community. when that happens, when we talk individually, we make statements. I have received a lot of feedback that people are nervous and cautious, they're nervous about it because those are individual comments. And I would just simply like to make sure that as a board, we are sensitive to that, but and that we are transparent about it as we move forward.
And the chair responds to you, Brock, that we do in fact need to be cognizant of where, budget and policy diverge. And I think you probably understand what I mean by that. Certainly a graduation policy, which has affected all the staffing levels, it's a policy matter. Okay? And that policy matter has implications for budget. Budget may come to some conclusions which will need to be examined by policy. Okay, I have a hand, Kelly, let's have it.
I think just to build off some of what Rob was saying, I think it really is important to note that some of the conversation around K-12 in this room and at the board level has been deeply unsettling among the faculty in the building in particular. They do feel, I would say, pretty broadly speaking, that this process is being what could have been, what should be a really important opportunity, one that's funded through ESSER, right? Is going to be weaponized against them, right? And so it has had a really chilling effect on folks' willingness to speak with candor to the consultants and to engage in the process. And so I just need to name that. I think that's really important. I understand where some of the concern and pressure is coming from, frankly, to look at the budget, critical lens, but that drive, if that's overtaking this conversation, is really going to inhibit very necessary conversation around equity in the building, right? Like our schedule is working for some, but not all. I think we all agree on that, right? But if we're going to completely clamp down the conversation, this is a really big missed opportunity. So I just want to urge, I feel like it's important to center that reality for folks who know it.
I do have a hand problem. Back in just a moment. I want to do a quick check-in with you, Mary Lou.
I support what Kelly and Rob both have said.
Okay, thank you.
We need to be
Quick
cautious.
check-in, Jim.
Two things now leave. One is, I think what Mike did at the beginning of the meeting was to say that there's an impression in the community that the taxpayer doesn't get any consideration at this table. Okay. And you know, I don't expect anybody to say, oh, yeah, that's just, we're not just saying that's a fact. Okay. And that's more of an issue for you, Andy, and stuff like that, because I am sensitive. We don't want to cost Andy, the teaching staff. That's it. The other thing is, in looking at some of the data, and also thinking of the work of the board. I'm an old guy, but I'm very committed to education. When I went to high school here, we had, for example, English 9, 10, 11, and 12. Okay,
Jim,
and it was.
I don't mean to interrupt you, but bring it around as quickly as you can.
I will. Okay. So that was 4 credits in English. Okay. When I looked at the material, I saw maybe a English 9. I think one of the curriculum D guys had English 11. To me, there ought to be 9, 10, 11, and 12 with a little subset that says, here's the stuff that we deal with in English 9, 10, 11, and 12. I mean, it would certainly help with the board member. So again, interpreting the schedule as a board member, I think that it might be able to help. You know, another for instance is when I was in
That's your
school,
last, for instance, Jim. So
the last for instance, Algebra 1 was was a one credit course, it took a 3 years. And I see in many of the exhibits that there's algebra 1A and algebra 1B, both getting a full credit. And I'm saying, well, gee, that doesn't seem right. And geometry 1 and geometry 2 each getting a full credit. You have geometry, so I think this could get to Andy's comment about understanding these credits. Okay, but anyway, to help the board, I think some looking at those kinds of things might be helpful for the board as they're working with schedules.
Thank you, Jim. Rob?
Yes, thank you for allowing me to speak, Chair.
Hey,
I just want to add one more component to what Kelly says, because I think as we're going through K-12 solutions, et cetera, we're trying to go through the process. And when we have board members that are naming something, then I think the process is broke, because there's whether perception's reality, and that decisions have already been made prior to all of this being done. I'm here as a board member to tell you, I hope and believe that that's not the case, but that is a perception output. I want to make sure that is front and center.
I hear you clearly. I think the committee hears you clearly. Thank you, Rob.
Thank you.
Okay, last on this topic, Jason.
So, thank you, David. So I was listening to, you guys speak on that side, really, sit down for a second. Say, Jake, I'm hearing you guys speak on that side of the room, and the person that we did not hire, that was hired by administration, also has an opinion. And his opinion was, that there still needs to be more gathering of data. And that's our opinion also. And, he was just saying that class sizes were 20, this is what the math was, the hard math was what you need. And so there was no opinion formed on our side other than looking at his numbers and agreeing that we needed to get more information before we could make a decision and bring it back to the board. When he took a non-emotional approach. He does not know the people in this building. Non-emotional, he was hired to do a job, he did his job. Of course, emotions are going to get into it because they're people. That's what they do. And to Jake's point, as a taxpayer, I think that is important to consider. How we're putting together budgets. And then lastly, all this data that we're building up to, the important thing is what our results were previously. And overall, no matter who's in the building, we have to improve the rigor and the relevance. That has to improve, without a doubt. Even if there was one staff member compared to 1,000. That needs one. The educational output needs one. Simple as that. David, let me ask you a question. Your advice.
The chair's part, go ahead.
Do we need a motion to new solutions if there's communication with administration to make sure that we're included on that?
The chair's ruling is new solutions K-12 is an administrative, it is an administrative initiative, and we would like to be kept abreast of progress, but it is the administration's responsibility to inform us of when they have progress, which can be reported out. We're going to ask, hopefully you'll tell us first. Okay, so no motion is necessary, at least tonight, Jason. Thank you, David. Okay, thank you.
Could I just?
Do you have a question? And I do see your hand, Rob, and we have moved off the strict top bunch, okay? And I have invited Andy's input, and I thought Jason had the last word. And he's gonna have the last word, and then we're gonna move on with our agenda. Thank you for the participation. Go ahead, Andy.
Thank you, David. I'll make it very brief. I just want to be clear. And I know, Jason, what you meant by that side of the table, this side of the table. This is a round table to me. We are all here. We're all working together for the same thing. And I want the community to know that this is not a us versus them, board versus administration.
David, I'd like to apologize if I misspoke.
No,
That's not what I meant at all. I think that you understand how I feel.
Right, I just wanted to clarify, because I knew that's what you meant, and then, but at the same time. New solution, I think we are all of the same opinion also, new solution is continuing to collect data. And we are. Having David James come and speak to this committee. Was premature, but it was at the request of the committee. We're early in their process, and so therefore it feels like you're getting information that we weren't prepared to share because we're still working through a lot of the different, as Kelly pointed out, there's still these nuances that have to happen. So I just wanted, but I wanted to make sure it's not an us versus them, and I know that's not what you meant, and I wanted to make sure everyone knew that we feel the same way.
Hey, thank you. Rob, with all due respect, I know that it's burning a hole through you. I do want to get through the rest of the agenda, and if it's still burning a hole through you, then I'll hear it, okay? So, next up is to, set time and date for business manager presentation on object-based FY 24-25 budget. Okay, Jim, what can you tell us?
I think by November 1st, we'll have certainly solidified something that you can get your arms around.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for that. I see we are down to other business pending possible adjustments to the agenda. It's like the belief that it would be appropriate to hear what you have to say, Rob. I will be asking others around the table who have had continuous involvement in the budget discussion, if there's anything else that they wish to say. So exercise the chair's discretion. My distinguished colleague from Rockingham is recognized.
I appreciate it. I will be quick. So I've been in education for 24 years and worked with schools that brought in consultants. And those consultants were just that. They come in, they look at it, they do, to Jason's point, they give an outside perspective to school boards and to schools. I think from that point, that's not the answer to everything. That is giving another layer of information to the school or the superintendent to say, let's start looking at this, because we as a board live with that every day. Consultants come in and give you stuff and they don't have to deal with what your clientele is, you know, what things are going on. So that's what they are. They're consultants, they're not decision makers. I appreciate the opportunity to speak.
Thank you, Rob. Priscilla, any last remarks?
Yeah, I agree with Bob totally, because our students could be totally different from the ones in another school, whereas that maybe 20 in a class works in one school, maybe only 10 works in another school, maybe 15 works in another school. And I appreciate Kelly's remarks tonight where she was addressing that some of the classes aren't safe at those levels. So I think that's part of it, but we also have to consider the type of student and whether some of our students may be more individualized than that's an important thing. I would like Jim at some point, and because we've already gone on that already, but I wasn't sure why there was a 90,000 increase in administrative salaries next year. So we can answer that question at some time. Maybe not tonight, but we'll be on that.
That may be more properly brought before the board, Priscilla, I believe, during a discussion of budget update. Thank you for that. Mike, you've done a heck of a lot of heavy lifting for this board and this community. I didn't mean to say community. I meant to say committee, but I guess the community benefited too, so why not? You got anything for us?
I think the process is working well from a standpoint of input from all kinds of sources, whether it's consultants, the school, the board, community members. And, you know, we're in the process of trying to make good decisions based upon data, and I'm encouraged.
And thank you, Mike. I just so you know, Dave and Mary Lou, I'm making a conscious effort to ignore you here. But don't take it personally. Jason, last word before we set a date for the next meeting.
So, I just wanted to clarify again, as far as administration goes, I hope you guys know, I think the world of what you guys are doing here. You can see the difference, you can feel the difference in the community, and that's important. And as far as what, you know, the consultant, I clearly know what the consultants do, he was just giving us data, and I came away from the meeting with the fact that we needed more data, and he specifically said he's not done, he needs to get in touch with administration. That's why I asked if we should be involved with that, not to manage it, but just to know what was going on. And he said that, you know, wasn't even sure what the ideal class size was. He was just given a hard number. That's all it was. That's all this board member took away from it, or this committee member took away from it. And it's nice to have data for a change, you know, so that we can all make a good decision for the kids, the taxpayer, and increase rigor and relevance. Simple. It's not complicated.
Thank you, Jason. Okay, administration is queried. When will you be ready to come back to us?
I think we had proposed the 26th.
October 26th,
October 26th. Okay, all right.
early, right? So you can.
3 p.m. would be great.
What time again, Kelly?
3.
Okay,
That work?
rework.
I think that's perfect.
Okay, I can make that work. I presume that means you can make that work, Deb? All right, okay, thank you so much. Seeing no other business to come before this committee, I will declare us adjourned at, we're gonna call it 7:35. Thank you all for your participation. Any additional thoughts or comments? Shoot the committee an email